I'm James Swanwick. This is the Alcohol Free Lifestyle Podcast, where you learn to live a life of health, wealth, love, and happiness.
When people have got to the stage where they are thinking about quitting alcohol, the chances are that their drinking has become quite uncomfortable. It could be that they're starting to notice weight gain, their sleep is deteriorating, their relationships are perhaps a bit strained. So there tends to be problems that are a catalyst for somebody deciding they need to create some changes. But the interesting thing about human beings is that even when things are uncomfortable, we're much more prone to stay with the familiar than we are to move into areas of uncertainty. And this is why change is so difficult for people. It's not that we're unable to change, it's just that we are creatures of comfort. And staying in our comfort zone is something that we are very likely to do for long periods of time, especially when the idea of changing creates a lot of fear and anxiety. And obviously, for a lot of people, quitting alcohol does create fear and anxiety. So, in this episode, I'm going to talk you through the zones. We're going to start with the comfort zone. What is the comfort zone? What does it look like? How does it keep us stuck? And what are the things we need to look out for? We'll then move into the fear zone. The fear zone is where we have to go in order to create change. The wonderful thing is, though, that once we've moved past the fear zone, we move into the learning zone and then into the growth zone. And if we can just keep moving forward, we will succeed. Not only will we succeed, but we will move ourselves to new levels of empowerment, new levels of awareness, and a whole new way of being. I have seen this in myself and in many of the people that I've been lucky enough to work with, that this process of moving through these zones can in itself become quite addictive. And it's a lot more productive to be addicted to growth than it is to be addicted to the comfort zone. So let's start with the first circle. If you can imagine, there's a circle there, and right at the beginning, in the middle, is the comfort zone. The comfort zone is the familiar. It is what we know. It is what we have already experienced. We feel safe. We feel in control. And from a neuroscience perspective, the brain is comfortable, even if that comfort zone involves difficult circumstances. The brain knows that it can survive. So the brain will always default to what it knows already. And it knows that even though drinking might be causing us problems, that we can survive that. What we don't know, especially if this is our first time to remove alcohol, is whether or not we can survive without drinking. And this happens on a very subconscious level. So the comfort zone is, as it says, comfortable. We can be in the comfort zone in some areas of our life, and in other areas of our life, we can be in the learning zone or the growth zone. So as an example, you might be in the comfort zone with your drinking, but you might be in a huge learning zone for your business. And so different areas of our lives mean that we can be in different zones. Now, once we've made a decision to change, we will move out of the comfort zone. And it's so interesting that the first zone that we must go through is the most terrifying one, the fear zone. And the fear zone is by definition uncomfortable. Here, we do not know what to expect. We can't build on our previous experience because we have none. And we tend to make a lot of excuses in the fear zone as to why we can't stay there and why we need to go back to the comfort zone. So let's say that you've found the courage to move into the fear zone and you're experimenting or exploring with being alcohol free. And then something happens that triggers you. So even though you've had the courage to leave your comfort zone, the fear of that unknown of, can I survive this situation or person or environment, when that kicks in, the default is for the brain to say, no, you cannot, because I have no data to support that you can survive this. So I'm going to take you back to the comfort zone. And this can happen very, very quickly. So we must remain vigilant. And part of being vigilant about that is simply knowing that for a long time, when we're not drinking, we're living in the fear zone. So in the fear zone, we're worried about what other people think of us. We are very prone to creating excuses. We are not filled with self-confidence. We will be feeling very uncomfortable, out of our depth perhaps at times, and questioning our own abilities. So it stands to reason that the fear zone is the most challenging part of our learning and growth journey. The fear zone is unpredictable, and often we're not sure if it's going to be worth it. So it's really helpful, I think, to know that with anything, any area of life where we want to grow, we must get through this very sticky, uncomfortable zone, the fear zone. And with that knowledge, you can sometimes, when that fear comes up, inevitable fear of change, if you can visualize, I'm literally just battling my way through, swimming through this discomfort. And on the other side, the water will be calmer and it will be easier to navigate and possibly a little bit warmer and a bit nicer. So we've come from, let's say, the hot spa into the freezing cold plunge, and then we're going to move into the learning zone where we are perhaps not nice and cozy, but we're definitely not petrified and freezing. So we get into the learning zone, and here we can first of all have a sense of pride that we've managed to endure our experience in the fear zone. We've come out the other side, and this is where we start to acquire new skills. We are learning to deal with the challenges and problems from a place of courage as opposed to a place of fear. And when we make it into that learning zone, it's so cool because our comfort zone actually starts to expand and we start to feel more comfortable in experiences where previously we felt very uncomfortable. So if you can imagine that your comfort zone, the areas in your life where you feel completely in charge and in control and ideally happy, so we're talking about a positive comfort zone, that part of your life starts to expand, and more things and experiences that you have in your life will fall into this expansive comfort zone. And the more work we do, the wider that comfort zone becomes, and things that you thought that maybe you would never, ever be able to do or overcome now sit very happily in your comfort zone. What that then allows you to do is have more courage to go through the fear zone in other areas of your life. We're constantly expanding, learning, growing. So in the learning zone, this is where we deal with the problems, we acquire new skills, and we expand and extend our comfort zone. The next stage is the growth zone. So over time, we start to move into this area which we call growth. And as we stay long enough in the learning zone, it helps us to grow as a person on multiple levels. We will increase our resilience because we've conquered so many different challenges. And we've started to create a real sense of trust and belief in ourselves, which means that we are more likely to follow our passions and our dreams because we really believe that that's possible. We also may start to experience a sense of meaning, more purpose in life as we start to invest in things that are really important to us. We have more clarity about what is important to us because we're not stuck and limited by what we already know in our comfort zone. We're a lot more open to the unfamiliar. And this opens up doors and opportunities and possibilities that you can never imagine when you're stuck just living in a small world, a world of what you already know. So the growth zone is the ultimate bigger picture. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this is the zone that we can become really addicted to. This is the zone where we are starting to self-actualize, where we are changing or have changed at a very fundamental level. We've not just changed one habit, but what we've done is we've proven to ourselves that we have the capacity to change and that we have so many areas in our lives where we can apply the skills that we've learned in order to overcome the fear, move into more learning and expand our growth, our opportunities, our outlook on life. And we never get that opportunity if we stay small. So entering the growth zone is the ultimate reward for enduring the fear zone. In order to really understand this, it must be experienced. It must be something that you persevere at in order to have the reward of growth.
Hi, this is James Swanwick, and we're taking applications for our 90-day and 365-day stop drinking programs. Clients are mostly executives, entrepreneurs, and investors who have tried unsuccessfully and repeatedly to stop drinking, but remain stuck in a frustrating cycle of stop, start, stop, start. Our programs are not AA, which has a reported 7% success rate. Our programs are not rehab, which has a reported 6% success rate. Our 90-day and 1-year programs involve a safe, fun, virtual community of high achievers with a process that boasts a scientifically proven 98% success rate of clients reaching at least 90 consecutive days alcohol-free. That's according to the University of Washington. We use the latest neuroscience and personal development processes to help rewire clients' brains around alcohol and minimize its importance in their lives. We will show you how to powerfully socialize with friends, family, and colleagues, what to say and how to say it so people don't mistakenly think you're an alcoholic or have a problem, and how to eliminate the temptation of returning to constant drinking so you break the stop-start cycle. To ensure client success, Project 90 can only accept 24 new clients each month. Some of those happy clients include John Keltner from California, who said, "I've lost 10 pounds." Susie Vaughan, a real estate broker in Tennessee, who said, "I've generated 20% more leads." Jessica Gaines from Kentucky, who says, "I've now got joy, focus, presence, and clarity." And Joe Worley from Michigan, who says, "My wife has the real Joe back." If you're an executive, entrepreneur, investor, real estate professional, attorney, doctor, and you're sick of the stop-start cycle and the damaging effects alcohol has on your health, happiness, and family, and you're ready to regain confidence, become more present with your spouse and children, reduce stress, anxiety, and irritability, sleep better, increase focus and productivity, and feel better quickly, you're invited to apply to become one of our 24 monthly Project 90 clients. Applicants can apply for an introductory interview by visiting alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90. There's also a link in this episode's show notes. That's alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90. Application interviews are limited and are conducted on a first-come, first-served basis. Okay, let's get back to the show.
And there also must be a belief that it's going to be worth the inevitable, tumultuous experience of being in the fear zone. So I'll finish off this episode with my lived experience of going through these different zones. It will give you an idea of what it means, what each zone means, and obviously hopefully encourage you to get excited about the possibility of moving into the learning and growth zones when it comes to quitting alcohol. Because ultimately, if you think about it, alcohol is a comfort zone. Even though it causes us pain and stress and fear, and we spend a lot of time wishing that we weren't drinking, it is still a known quantity. And unless we get very clear about where we want to go and why, and the possibilities, it's incredibly hard to keep going through the fear zone, which is why so many people are successful at quitting, but then always seem to go back to their drinking. So for me, the comfort zone was that I used alcohol to relieve my anxiety. I used it to fit in with other people. I used it socially. I used it when I would drink alone as a way of winding down and shutting off my busy mind. And that desire for comfort was very, very strong. That comfort that came from a bottle of wine. And I recall it even, just over 4 years on now, the pull of escapism. And so I lived in that comfort zone for a really long time, and it did feel safe for a long time. But the interesting thing is that in the comfort zone, we should feel safe and we should feel in control. And I started to feel out of control. And that's what spurred me to decide to do things differently. The fear zone for me, moving into the fear zone, was primarily, the fear was around what other people would think. Would I be judged? Would people call me terrible names that I'm sure you know the words that I'm thinking of? That I would not have a crutch, that I would be without an anchor, I would be out of control, I would be sad, lonely, afraid. All of those things came up for me. Did I believe I could do it? Yes, I did. And the reason that I believed I could do it is because I've been through these zones before in other areas of my life. Primarily, the one I was thinking about was smoking. So I had a prior experience of quitting an addictive substance. And that really helped from my confidence levels because I realised that I'd been able to do it before. So a really good exercise to do before you embark on coming out of your comfort zone is to ask yourself, when have I done something like this before? What tools do I have? What level of trust do I have in myself that I am somebody that can get through the fear zone? So within the fear zone, I obviously had to navigate a whole host of things that anyone that's tried to quit alcohol before will be very familiar with. You have to get past the discomfort of socializing without alcohol. You have to navigate telling people you're not drinking. You have to get home after a stressful day and find something else to do as opposed to grabbing a glass of wine. You have to navigate relationships. There's a whole host of things that you need to do in the fear zone. But if you keep moving forward, every single time you overcome a challenge, you are getting closer and closer and closer to the learning zone. And actually, the fear and learning zone can kind of merge together a little bit, because you overcome a fear and you learn. You overcome another fear and you learn something else. And as you move into the learning zone and you start to gain experience and get these little wins under your belt, and you start to have confidence that you can deal with the challenges and the problems. You start to gain confidence in yourself. You are not at the mercy of what other people think about you. You start to care less about people saying things about you, because you're building this internal resilience, this internal pride and confidence every single time you don't succumb to the fear. Now, an important part of this process that I really activated in my own life was that every time I didn't drink, every time I overcame an obstacle, I really celebrated that in various different ways. Sometimes it was just as simple as taking a few minutes to just breathe and just say some really nice things to myself about how well I was doing. Other times I might treat myself to something and say, well, I would have spent $50 on a couple of bottles of wine. I'm going to go and buy myself something for $50. And so I always reward the new behavior, because what we're trying to do by moving through these zones, particularly when it comes to alcohol, is we're trying to create a new reward system so that the new reward becomes what we are driven towards, as opposed to alcohol being the reward. As time goes on and we become more and more confident, we start to learn that we can overcome many things. And as we overcome these things, our comfort zone starts to expand. We may even notice that we have no anxiety anymore about going out and drinking with friends and having our non-alcoholic drink. And again, this is a really important part of this process. So many people kind of acquire a new skill and then don't remember to reward themselves for it. So we must be always vigilant to our growth. The reason that I say this is because we are creatures of habit and familiarity. And so as soon as something becomes so familiar and so comfortable that we fall back into our comfort zone, we can forget how far we've come. We can forget that we have acquired all these new skills. And with that forgetfulness can often come complacency. So the learning zone requires us to really pay attention to the new learnings and also to reward those new learnings and remain conscious as much as possible of what we did in order to get through the fear zone, so that we don't go back there, we don't fall back into comfort and complacency. If we are really committed and dedicated to our own growth, then we start to move into the growth zone, and this becomes where the journey is the most rewarding and the most enjoyable. In the growth zone, we take everything that we've learnt, we take the confidence, we take the resilience, we take the knowledge that we have been able to move past our fear, and our opportunities in life become much greater, because we now have confidence, we have courage, we have evidence that we've been able to overcome a significantly large challenge. So what that means is that when we think about those dreams that perhaps we'd given up on, or those things that we really want for our lives that we felt were just not going to be possible suddenly start to become perhaps just tiny little possibilities again. It's like we start to see these little bits of hope, little pops of ideas of things that maybe we've forgotten all about, that suddenly we start to think, yeah, maybe, just maybe I could do that. And this is where people can either lose faith because they start to dream too big, or they approach this area with a sense of grounded reality, allowing themselves to have dreams and aspirations and goals without trying to rush. If there's one thing that I've learned, the learning zone is probably the one where we need to stay in for the longest period of time. This is the area where we don't want to rush. We don't want to power through the learning zone so that we can grow and conquer the world and save the world and change everything all at once, which is what often happens for people. In the learning zone, my experience was very, up and down, because I was very impatient to get to the next stage. And so I made lots of mistakes. But now looking back, that was the learning zone, right? We have to make mistakes in order to learn. So the learning zone is where we have to give ourselves a lot of grace to make mistakes, a lot of grace to be uncertain, and a lot of reward for even trying. And then as we then move into growth, real growth, grounded growth, we can start to have much more clarity about what it is that we really want. We stop chasing after the fleeting highs. We stop looking to the external world to feed our internal world. We start to realize that chasing after jobs and people and money and all those external things, drugs, alcohol, they don't work long term. And if we really want to grow and we really want to live a peaceful, fulfilling life, in the growth zone we end up letting go of a lot of the things that have been holding us down. We let go of pressure and drive to succeed in the external world. And we realize, interestingly, that everything that we thought we wanted that's outside of us, we actually have and have always had inside. So once you, as a person, in yourself, find your own internal comfort zone, and what I mean by that is if you go through all of these stages and you really pay attention, you can start to rediscover the true comfort zone. And the comfort zone is there within all of us. It's the part of us that says, no matter what, you can succeed. No matter what, you are safe. No matter what, you can do whatever you want to do. And that comfort zone is the one that we want to expand more and more and more, so that we can move through fear with that deep internal knowledge, deep internal knowing that we will be okay no matter what. So the invitation, the opportunity for anybody that is looking to quit alcohol is that this is the catalyst for extraordinary growth. If you choose to really pay attention to the journey, Don't put your head down, grit your teeth, pressure yourself to power through. Take it slowly, consciously. Be mindful about every experience, knowing that the thing that you are looking for is already in you. And you need to go through certain stages of growth and development in order to get rid of all of the things that are preventing you from seeing what is already inside of you. So, just as a recap, we start with what we could arguably call a negative comfort zone. An area of our life where we are comfortable but it's not serving us. And let's say that that's drinking. We decide we are willing to take on the journey and we are willing to move through fear. We strategize, we plan, we get ready, we get prepared, almost like we're going into battle. And no matter what happens in the fear zone, we keep moving forward because we know that once we get through the fear zone, we start to learn, and this is where the growth starts to begin. In the learning zone, we're more confident. We're ready to deal with the challenges. We have acquired the skills that we need, the resilience, the determination, the confidence, the courage. And we start to extend the inner positive grounding comfort zone I was talking about just earlier. And then we move into growth. This is where we can become totally lost in possibility, in peace, in harmony, in love. That our life can be one long, exciting journey of growth. And in order for us to really maximize that opportunity, we have, by removing alcohol, been able to start building a very solid foundational comfort zone in ourselves to know, if I can do that, I can do anything. That's the opportunity. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's so much more exciting to look at it that way, to experience it that way, than to simply white knuckle our way through life, desperately trying to find the thing that's going to make us happy on the outside. Anyone that has tried to make themselves happy with external things genuinely realises eventually that these things never work long term. So the work is always about going inside. And I do believe that removing alcohol can be one of the most extraordinary ways that we can really uncover inside of ourselves what's already been there the whole time. The most empowering comfort zone, the one of self-acceptance, self-love, and a belief that life is actually meant to be fun and peaceful and loving. That's what I've found anyway. And I hope that I've shared some of that with you in this episode, the possibility, the opportunity. And keep listening, keep going, wherever you're at. This journey is one that can change your life at a very extraordinary level. Thank you so much for listening.